Welcome, everybody. My name is Pat, and I am the Relationships Manager here at Mindsum. We are very excited that you are all here today and to be listening in on Michelle and what she has to offer at her webinar today. So I can tell you a little bit about Mindsum. Mindsum is a tech-based platform that will be servicing young adults and children to the best that we can to try to get them the right therapy services and really provide the best access to mental health tools and access to mental health therapy. We are a web-based platform that started about a year ago. So we are super excited to build a community around mental health and wellness. And one of the ways that we do that is by having these bi-weekly webinars. So we are super excited for Michelle to have come along board and to be able to speak at one of our webinars. So Michelle is she's a CBT practitioner, and she's a certified international health coach and mental health ambassador. She works with individuals and companies to help them understand their health and happiness goals in various aspects, such as diet and weight loss, reducing stress. And she then supports them and puts them in place that habits to achieve and to sustain their goals through one-to-one coaching. So we're super excited to have Michelle here today. She has a lot to say and a really great presentation. So I'm going to turn this over to Michelle, and we will go from there.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Pat. I will wait for you to make me the host, and then I can slide share. And if everyone can just sort of get their chat boxes open. I know some people feel really comfortable chatting in a chat box. Some people don't feel comfortable at all. So there's no expectation. If I ask a question and nobody answers in the chat box, I will just carry on talking. But if you want to chat in there, if you want to ask me questions, if you want to agree with me, disagree with me, then that's also great as well, because we're obviously all in different places. So because we're not in the same room, I like to try and make these things interactive. There'll be a chance for Q&A at the end, but do ask me as we go through. And if you've got any questions that you want to ask me privately, I'll make sure you've got my details as well. So let me get the slide share bit up. Always the tech bit, the nervous bit of will it work? Fingers crossed, that has indeed worked, which is great. So yes, as Pat said, I am a health coach and a CBT practitioner, and I work with people across so many different areas. People often assume that it's just food and exercise when you're talking about health. And yes, those things are important, but there is so much more to that. If you are struggling with work, that could be impacting your sleep, which then could be impacting your sense of joy. If you are struggling with your daily routine, that could then be impacting whether you do any exercise or not, which could be impacting how you feel physically. So often we think there's a few things that are out of balance, but by just making one change, it can actually realign multiple parts of our lives. So as Pat said, I do that through one-to-one coaching, but also working with corporates to help them with their teams. But before that, I was actually in technical recruitment for over 20 years. And it was through my own health scare that I decided to retrain to become a health coach to help other people. And the thing that was ultimately making me sick was stress. I'm going to talk about stress as we kind of get going into the talk. So I'm not going to delve into that right at this point. But yeah, just bearing in mind as I'm talking about it that I have been there. I was the person lying on the floor waiting for the paramedics to come. And it was all stress related. But let's get started with that. Let's look at kind of what does actually living a happy, healthy life mean? Because that's a really big question, and for everybody that's going to be different. For some people it will be financial security, for other people it will be the being surrounded by friends and family, but for all of us, and I think sometimes the thing we don't necessarily think about is it's about being sort of free from chronic disease. So this is what I'm going to talk about today, is what we actually really need to know to be healthy. Here we go. There we go. There's a little thing what we want. Chronic disease. What I'm talking about there is cancer, heart disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's, dementia, all the kind of big ones that we really want to avoid. So Here's a little stat for you just here. This might be something that, I don't know, let me know in the chat box if this is a surprising stat, that actually diet and unhealthy lifestyle is related to 7 in 10 deaths. It's quite a scary stat, but what is positive about that is that means that 70% of deaths are things that we can do to prevent. So it's actually really empowering to know that if we make positive changes, we can really give ourselves a chance of lovely, long, healthy, happy lives. But where do we start? There are so many different messages out there. So often we get so overwhelmed that we just haven't got a clue. So I did what most people would do when they want to know something, is I went to Google and I got 978 million results when I asked the questions, how do I live a happy life? So if this wasn't my job, the chances are I would have shut the laptop and gone to the pub. But it is my job. So I was like, let's actually find out what we really, really need to know. Let's cut away from all of this noise. Let's break it down to the simple messages so that people can really understand and make some positive change. So it comes down to 6 key areas. These were decided by a group called the True Health Initiative. They are 400 independent experts. So they are not being paid by any particular company to say any particular message. It is just about giving us the information that we really need to know. And they came up with 6 areas. And these are the things I'm going to talk through with you today so that you understand each of the areas and get some little takeaways for each of them. I'm going to move through them fairly quickly because we've got a lot to cover and I want to make sure you've got time for Q&A at the end. But as I said, do type in the chat if you've got any questions as we go. So number 1, and most importantly, I'm going to talk about stress. Stress is your body's way of basically telling you you are in danger. So stress can be a good thing. When stress is short-lived, like you're crossing the road and a car beeps its horn at you, that's a good thing. That's us knowing that we need to keep ourselves safe. The problem that we have now is that stress isn't like that anymore. Stress is from the moment we wake up in the morning to the alarm, till we check our email, our social media, whatever happens during our day, we are constantly being bombarded with stress. And that's when it becomes chronic, which is when the problems start to arise. And what happens is when we're stressed, we get inflammation in the body. Inflammation inflames, on fire. It basically means that our body becomes on fire. And that is what causes all chronic disease, which is why stress is something we really need to focus on, because cancer is a tumor, it's inflammation. Heart disease, inflammation of the arteries. Autoimmune disease, inflammation of the gut. Alzheimer's, inflammation of the brain. They're all directly linked to that. And up to 90% of visits to the doctor are in some way related to stress. Let's take COVID out of this, because obviously that's just this weird craziness we're all having to deal with. But pretty much if you are going to the doctor because you have an upset gut, or you have headaches, or you have sleep problems, the chances are in some way that's related to stress. So again, this shows the importance of doing something about that. So what do? There are 2 different ways when it comes to stress. The ideal would be obviously remove what's causing it. Not always possible. Not always possible to sort of walk away from situations. So that's when we need to understand ways to cope with it. But let's first of all look at maybe some of the things that we can remove. Negative people. The people you spend your time with influence everything. They say we are the average of the 5 people that we spend our time with. Now, for me, this was the thing that made me sick. It was my relationship with my best friend. It had become so toxic that every single interaction I had with her stressed me out and ultimately led to me being in hospital. So now I know this is not always possible because it depends who that negative person is. It's not always possible to completely step away from them. But if it isn't, maybe look at ways you can reduce your interaction with them. So sort of reaching out less to them to be the person to always make the arrangements, or if you know they're going to be somewhere at a certain time, maybe arrive a little bit later. Thinking about those people that you spend your time with, because they massively impact us so much more than people even realize. Number 2, when it comes to this, and I said I'm going to kind of go through it quite quickly because there's so many different things I want to share with you, but our time. How are you finding at the moment that you are busier than ever? Suddenly you've got to queue for everything and you've got to remember your mask, and you look at your diary and you just haven't even got time to get a good night's sleep or eat a piece of fruit. So look at things you can remove out of your diary. It's like, maybe if you remove that toxic friend, you've now got a bit more time available. If you hate running, take running out of your diary. If you've got a weekly appointment, could it be fortnightly? If you've got something that's an hour, could you make it 30 minutes? Try and remove some things from your diary to actually free up some space to do some things for yourself. Because more often than not, our diaries are filled with everything for everybody else. And obviously in there's jobs and people have to pay bills and all of that side of things, but we got to do some stuff for ourselves. People think that self-care is selfish. It's not. If you don't look after yourself, you can't be strong for anyone else. And the next one in terms of removing, before I go to the coping piece, is noise. Like these things. It's like a constant woodpecker tapping on your head when you have notifications on your home screen. And sometimes we just want some silence. We just want some quiet. So having a think about where you can remove some noise, where you can get some quiet time. Maybe that's taking yourself off to your bedroom for just some peace, going for a walk on your own, saying to whoever you live with, I need to just have a bit of space to myself, because silence and downtime is really important, because today is 24/7, the world, isn't it? And there's not often a lot of peace and quiet. But now let's move on to kind of ways to cope. Who finds the picture on the left stressful? Whenever I see that picture, I literally feel my heart start to race. That whole feeling about where's your keys, where's your phone, can't find anything is stressful. Here we go, we've got a yes. It's like, I've done this presentation a lot of times over lockdown, and still that picture I find super stressful. So when it comes to stress and things that we can kind of help to reduce it, find a little bit of space, a little bit of clear space. If you live in a shared house, that might not be so easy to tell your flatmates to tidy up. Maybe that needs to be your bedroom where you just have that space. If you're at home at the moment and you're working at home, it might be that actually it's your desk space. So a way of helping reduce those feelings of stress is creating somewhere that's free of clutter. The same goes for your email inbox or your social media or the apps on your phone. They're all things that just heat up our heads and cause us stress. So think about how you can have that little declutter. This one, multitasking. Who thinks they can multitask? If you were in the room with me, I would make you put your hands up, and I would have put my hand up as well, thinking I could. I've realized I can't really multitask. There are certain things that you can, of course, do at the same time. So you could be washing the dishes whilst having a conversation. But pretty much when you're trying to do two tasks at the same time, you're not going to do either of them properly. So if you're not sure that you believe me, when was the last time you were watching a Netflix box set? Here we go. You end up wasting more time, Amanda. Exactly. That's the thing. You're watching your TV program. You pick the phone up. You're fiddling on the phone. You then don't know what's happened on the TV show. So now you're rewinding it, wasting more time. It's like we just do a load of stuff badly. So multitasking reduces your productivity, and it can have the same effect as missing a full night's sleep. So pick your task, whatever you got to get it done, move on to the next one. Don't try and do lots of things at once, because you just end up doing them all badly. It's like spinning a lot of plates. Next one, procrastinating. This is a book called Eat That Frog. And the idea is, if every morning the first thing you did was eat a live frog, the whole rest of your day would be easier. So what's your frog? What's that thing that you don't want to do? Might be having a difficult conversation, might be doing ironing, might be doing some exercise. Whatever is your frog, get it done first thing in the morning, rip the plaster off. You will feel better. I promise you. It took me 18 months to tell my friend that I was not happy. And for 18 months, I stressed about it day in, day out. The minute I told her, I didn't even care what she said. I was just so relieved to finally have it off my chest. So whatever that thing is, get it done. It might not be pleasant, but you'll be grateful when it's over. And my big one when it comes to breathing, usually I finish on this one. This is my grand finale, but because there's so many things to cover in here, I've put this in early. Anyone on here do any form of conscious breathing? Anything more than the simple breathing that you do 25,000 times a day without even realizing it? Because most people don't. There we go. You used to. What happened? Why did you stop? Because it's a hard habit to build. But what it does is it rebalances the body's systems. It tells our body we are safe. It reduces stress because stress is our body's way of telling us we are in danger, and breathing calms that down. So I was doing it during therapy and stopped once my session stopped. Right, I'm going to give you a link to something that you should come and join, which is free and amazing. So I'll post that. But it does this. It literally switches your mind on and off. But it's called practice. So the first few times you do it, it might not work for you. You might not have the right voice of the person. You might not have the right type of breathing practice. Everyone likes something different. So it's about finding the thing that works for you. And at the end, when I start, I'm going to share a little slide about different things that you can use to help. I'm going to introduce you to a really good place to go. And 8:30 tonight, if you are free, there is a breathwork session on that place. So I will get to that point and share it at the end. So 3 habits. So what I do, talk about each of the 6 things that are most important in our life. And then I'm going to give you 3 habits for each of them. Number 1, remove toxic people. Whoever that person is that literally makes your blood boil, step away. Number 2, with breathing, you can start with as simple as 3, 4, 5. You breathe in for a count of 3, you hold your breath in for a count of 4, and you breathe out for a count of 5. And you just keep repeating that as many times as you need until you feel your body start to relax. This is science. This is not woo-woo. Breathing is something, it's a technique used by the Navy SEALs when they go into military battle to calm themselves down and prepare them. So this is not something just done kind of woo-woo and omming and chanting, although all of that is great too. So start with 3, 4, 5 and do a little bit of breathing. And if we've got some time at the end and people want to, we can do a little bit of that together. And the third thing with that is, what makes you calm? If you don't know what makes you feel calm, how do you know what to do when you want to feel calm? So that might be cuddling a puppy. It might be going for a walk barefoot on grass if you're near enough to a beach, or sand, or if you're near a beach, or grass if you're near a park. Get the words out. It might be a certain piece of music. It might be a certain comedian. It might be having someone rub your feet. Write down the things that make you feel calm. So when you start to feel uncomfortable and you start to feel overwhelmed, you can do one of those things. So that is my little snippet on stress. I do have whole talks on each of these areas, but we were really keen to give you lots of different points. So if anyone has any questions on stress, you can put it in the chat box. But after that, we're going to move on to forks, which is otherwise known as food. The reason that they call it forks is that pretty much when you're eating sort of healthy, good food, you're eating it with a fork. When you're eating potentially burgers or pizzas or kebabs, you might be eating them with your hands. Someone did remind me once that most fruit you do eat with your hands, like an apple or a banana. So this isn't 100% foolproof. But let's talking about this is that a poor diet can lead to conditions such as diabetes, cancer, heart disease, stroke, obesity. We know these things, and I don't want to kind of harp in on kind of the negativity. I want us to focus on the positive of what changes we can make to help ourselves not get all of these things. So who's been on a diet? And I'm not sure I will believe if there's anyone on here who tells me they have never been on some form of diet, because it's fairly standard for life, isn't it? There we go. I've tried all of them. Plant-based diet, winning, love that. You can keep being on that diet. That one does work. Here we go. Hunter, you've been on a million different ones. And this is exactly my point. The only people that diets work for are the people that write the diet books. They make millions of pounds. Let's look at the body coach, Joe Wicks. Nice bloke, not even a qualified nutritionist, writing all of these diet books worth about £15 million. All right for some. There's even this diet book, The 1-day diet. What is that? Eat some figs, go to the toilet. I don't know. It's ridiculous. But this is the point, is that diets don't work. So what should we be eating? And this is where we get really confused. And we're like the only species left on the planet that doesn't know what to eat. And it actually is really, really simple. Real food. And it's bad that I've had to put the word real in apostrophes, but I have to, because people put the word junk next to food and assume it's food. It's not, it's just junk. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about whole single ingredient food. Food that is mostly unprocessed, free of chemicals and additives, lots of nutrients. It's like, here we go, randomly going in my fruit basket. There's bananas, real food. Oranges, real food. It's like whole single ingredient food. That's what we want to be focusing on. Sorry, just randomly in the fruit basket. So it's this sort of stuff. It's ancestral. It's the things that people have been eating for thousands of years until the introduction of the microwave, the ready meal, Deliveroo, and all the convenience food, because life has got busier. So it's fruit and vegetables, nuts and seeds and whole grains. So Pat, they are all for you. That's the plant-based diet. It's about eating plants. But then for anyone that chooses to eat animal products, because that is a personal choice, what I would say is please eat the decent stuff. When you are eating really low quality animal products, that has been pumped full of antibiotics and different hormones, and when the animal eats it, you eat it. Now, I appreciate it's more expensive. I understand that. So my view with that is eat less of it. It used to be back in the day, we'd have a chicken on a Sunday, a bit like Christmas. You get your turkey, you make your turkey, and then you have a turkey sandwich, then you have a turkey curry, then you make a soup, all off the one bird. Whereas suddenly we feel like we have to eat meat every meal, and that becomes expensive. So looking at the quality of meat that you are eating, or fish or eggs, GMO is genetically modified. So we want to eat foods that hasn't been genetically modified, because that in itself just sounds a bit weird. Who wants to eat? Someone said, what about genetically modified kind of chicken grown from feathers of chicken? It's like, this is just weird. Like, chickens should be running around free, not being kind of grown in laboratories. But anyway, this isn't preaching about that. This is about health, and this is about eating real food that is going to fill your body with the nutrients it needs. It's even super clever. Look, the food looks like the parts of our bodies that it helps. When you were a child and you were told eat carrots because they'll help you see in the dark. Oh, look, carrots look like your eyes. Your walnut looks like your brain, and walnuts, your kidneys. Like, Mother Nature tried to make this really simple for us. And we've just confused ourselves by looking for things in packages, or even worse, supplements. Like, suddenly people think that this is a replacement for some vegetables. So focus on the real food, avoid the fake food, the stuff that is made in factories, the stuff that is made by people in hairnets rather than in the ground, processed, refined, preservatives, flavors, colorings. If you look at the packet and you don't know what is in, you can't even pronounce what is in it, question what it is. So here's some examples of things that is about marketing. Do you look at the Muller Light, real strawberry layer on top? That doesn't look like a strawberry. Fat-free, zero added sugar. What is it? It's full of artificial stuff. Snickers and Mars protein bars. It's a chocolate bar. Just say what it is. It's a chocolate, and have a chocolate and enjoy it. But don't pretend it's protein. If you want your protein, either get it from your meat, or get it from your tofu, or get it from your plants. Fruit shoots. Poor sort of parents who were sent into supermarkets and their kids want fruit shoots made with real fruit and no added sugar. Again, read the label. Monosodium polyo something or other. Don't even know what it is, and yet we're giving it to our kids. Cocoa Pops. I love this. Approved by mums. Of course it is. Kids love it. Turns the milk chocolatey. Source of vitamin D. So's the sun. Source of calcium. That's the milk. It's about food marketing. And as for Coke Zero, caffeine free, sugar free, holy water. Who knows what it is? So I'm not saying never eat these things. Life is a balance. We've got to have fun. We've got to have some treats. But it's about mainly eating whole, single ingredient food, food that you recognize, food that your grandmother would recognize. Ultimately, if something is some form of luminous green color, you probably want to give it a miss. So when it comes to food, then number one, I've talked about water right at the beginning. Drink your water. Glass when you wake up in the morning because you've been dehydrated throughout the night. One thing, a little tip I do, I actually leave a glass in the bathroom. So every time I go to use the bathroom, once I've washed my hands, and because my water is safe to drink in my bathroom, I fill the glass up and have a whole glass of water and I'm done. What's my opinion on coffee drinkers? I have no problem with coffee. I have a challenge when people have too much coffee. I am going to get to that. But yes, I will get to that point because I've got to talk about stimulants. But coffee is fine, 1 to 2 of them if you have it before 11 o'clock in the morning. If you have it after 11 o'clock in the morning, it's still in your system when you're trying to get to sleep and it's going to impact your sleep. So have a couple of cups early in the morning, really enjoy them. There's some good stuff in coffee, just not too much. Tips on drinking more water. Definitely my one, leave the glass in the bathroom. That means I don't even have to make the effort. It is there, it's easy. One thing I get my clients doing if they struggle to drink water is you can buy one of these really, really big bottles. Like you wouldn't carry it out anywhere with you, it'd just be at home. And on these bottles, you get them on Amazon, they've got times. So it's like, right, by 7 o'clock in the morning, you should have had that, by 8 o'clock. And it's about a 2-litre bottle. And it just means you have to fill it up once. You leave it, if it's at your work desk or wherever you are, if you're in the car, leave it somewhere easy. Because the whole point with any form of habit building, you've got to make it easy. Anything that is difficult, we are not going to do. So I would suggest the big bottle, definitely the glass in the bathroom. Like for me, it's been a game changer. Have a drink. And it's really important to drink water for so many reasons, but really importantly, your body is mainly water and it needs more, particularly in the summer when we are sweating a lot, we need to have more water. Add a vegetable to every meal. Whatever your meal is, even right, okay, you're having a pizza for dinner, put some broccoli on the side of it. Or if you don't like broccoli, some spinach, or if you don't like that, then some carrot, whatever it is, some frozen peas. Try and add a vegetable to every meal to increase the numbers that you're having. The more vegetables that you have, the more nutrients you're going to get, the more fiber you're going to get. Fiber is key to your body flowing naturally. And I don't need to go into detail, but we all know when we have a proud experience in the bathroom, that is because we are having enough fiber. When we are not proud of that experience and it hasn't been fun, that's our body telling us we are not eating enough fiber, not having enough plants. So get some more vegetables in. Number 3 of the habits, read the food label. Avoid anything with like loads and loads of ingredients that you don't know what they are. That is just the equivalent of me giving you a whole glass full of chemicals and saying, drink that. You're like, I don't know what it is. That is what's happening when you can't understand on a label what something is. They're my tips on food. Anything on that before I move on to the next one, being feet, which is movement. Filter jugs are handy to keep in the fridge, less than a tenner. Love that. Really, really good idea there by Hunter, is getting yourself a filter jug, making sure it's always filled up. Brilliant idea. Other idea, if it's that you don't like water, buy some fruit, chop it up, put it in the freezer, and then when you want some water, put a bit of frozen fruit in it, lemon, lime, apple, strawberry, whatever, and that will make water taste better as well. Gives it a little bit of a kick. So yeah, but the filter jug's a really good one, like that. Okay, feet, so movements. Obsessed with sparkling water. Absolutely, so nice and refreshing. Physical activity associated with many, many things. Weight control, reducing inflammation, which we now know is key. You improve your immune system, you reduce your cancer risk, you improve your mental health. There's nothing that exercise isn't good for. So the question is, and now that we are chatting in the chat box, you can let me know, what's the best exercise for you? What do you think it is? I've been doing so much talking, it makes me really thirsty because I'm breathing through my mouth. Dancing, I love that. Brilliant. Love a good dance. Had a good dance on Saturday night in my own lounge. It was brilliant. I think I was kidding myself that I was able to actually go to a pub and stand up and dance. Jogging, good stuff. And like that. Walking, hiking, weight training, yoga, dancing. Like yoga. Oh, terrible joints, so it helps. Brilliant. Love yoga. Yoga is one of those things that looks like it's easy and it's actually really, really hard. Yeah, I love it when I get my male clients doing yoga because they all think that they're going to sort of not enjoy it and then find that they absolutely love it. But when it comes to exercise and what is the best one for you, it is whichever one you are doing. There is no right or wrong. So every one of those answers that you put on there is right. The most important thing is you're doing it. And if you don't know where to start simple. Start with walking 10,000 steps a day. It's measurable, so therefore it's more manageable. Whether you've got a sort of walking on the iPhones, they've got the health app, which has got your steps. Whether you've got a Fitbit, there's lots of different apps. I use an app called Pacer. I just like it. So you can keep track of what you're doing, and you can then, if you want, start competitions with your mates to hold each other accountable. So ways that you can do that. Fine, if you're already doing your weight training and you're doing your dancing and yoga and you found all of that stuff, that's brilliant. That's called planned exercise. But there's also spontaneous exercise, which is things that we can just do throughout the day without even realizing or having to put effort into. Like getting off the bus a stop earlier to walk that bit further, taking the stairs rather than the lift, going for lunch somewhere a bit further. So if you like Pret or Starbucks for lunch, there's probably another one on the next corner anyway. So pick somewhere that's a little bit further, but make sure your body is moving, because if you want to keep healthy for your physical well-being, but almost more importantly, your mental well-being, it's about getting the exercise in. Good to hear that some people are doing some of that. And I always love looking at what people do, because it always gives me some inspiration for new ideas. Right, next one, we are going to talk about sleep. Big one. We spend a third of our life doing it, and yet we don't spend a lot of time really thinking about it. Sleep is when your body heals itself. It repairs all of your organs, all of your muscles, your skin. Everything is sort of getting healed, including your brain whilst you are asleep. Sleep deficiency is linked to, again, everything. I'm not going to list them all off. Sleep deficiency is just all round bad. So let me know, how much sleep a night are you getting? Don't worry, there's no right or wrong answer with this either. So there's no judgment, it's not a competition. And different days are going to be different. 6 to 7 hours, okay, like that. 9 hours, Amanda, very good. Patrick, 7 to 8. Okay, so we're getting a little mixture there, but it's all good to see that the numbers are kind of up there a little bit. This is the magic range, 7 to 9 hours. And everybody is different, which is why we've got a range rather than it has to be an exact number. So anyone who has getting less than that, you are not alone. 70% of the UK are getting under 7 hours. So it is very normal that people are not sleeping properly. There's many reasons for that, whether that is they're stressed because that impacts sleep, whether they're watching their TV too much, whether they've got kids. There are lots of different things that can impact our sleep. So thinking about sleep and ways to make it better, make it a priority. And I know particularly this is hard. I've got 2 stepdaughters. One of them is 17, one of them is 20, and they want to stay up all night because that's when all the fun happens. And I get that. And I don't want to sound like I'm being all boring and you should all go to bed really early. But it should be made a priority. We want to go to bed just that little bit earlier. During our sleep, we go through 5 sleep cycles, and each of those takes about 90 minutes. And we want to be trying to get all 5. So 90 minutes times 5 is 7.5 hours, which is where the kind of range of 7 to 9 hours comes from. So firstly, try and go to bed a little bit earlier. Get a really good pillow. Who's got one of those really like floppy rubbish pillows that you have to fold up because it's all too flat? It's like, and yet we'll go out and we'll buy lunch or we'll buy a round in the pub or whatever we're doing, but we don't think about, there we go, you need a new pillow. Go and get yourself one. The good thing is now they don't have to be expensive. If you've got like a home save, or which is like the home version of TK Maxx, it doesn't have to be expensive to get good pillows anymore. But invest in a new pillow, because you're spending a third of your life in bed. You want to be comfortable. And that goes for preparing your whole self for sleep. So about sort of not being on your phone in bed, almost impossible. I do appreciate that. Through to cutting back on that caffeine, which I will talk about, because it impacts your sleep. And my third one, and this is something that probably is one of the most important things that I tell people to buy, because I don't want people to be spending lots of money when I'm working with them. I want them to kind of, most of the stuff I want is for people to be able to do that, sort of not costing them a lot, or with food what they'd already be spending on it, but just slightly better choices. But a Lumilight. Has anyone heard of a Lumilight? This literally saved my marriage. My husband used to have to get up about 5:30 in the morning to go training. He's an athlete. So he'd be getting up even in the winter, and the alarm would go off. Now, I did not sign up to that when we got married, that alarm clock would go off at that time. So we got a Lumilight. There we go. Amanda got a better mattress. Completely game changing. So what happens with the Lumilight? If you need to be up at 7 o'clock in the morning, at 6:30, the light just slowly starts to go on, like the sun rising. And your body will naturally be pulled out of sleep to the awake state. So it means waking up in the morning is so much nicer an experience. So if you're thinking, do you know what, I'd quite like to get up a little bit earlier to maybe do a bit of exercise, one of these lights will get you up earlier, and you will actually feel better than if you slept for longer and used an alarm clock. I promise you. And I think they even do try them, and if they're no good, send them back. So you could even try that. But it also works in reverse. For anyone who struggles to get to sleep, if you turn this on, if you want to be asleep at say 11, and you turn it on at quarter to 11, slowly starts to fade like the sun setting. Be asleep by 11. So for anyone who struggles to get to sleep or to get up in the morning, this is a really, really good thing. There are other brands. So Philips does them. I'm sure there's lots of other brands now, because I bought mine probably about 6-7 years ago. So I'm sure you can get other brands and sort of good values. And there's probably even apps on the phones that do the same thing. But you get the point of making it a much nicer experience for you around going to sleep and getting up again in the morning. Any questions on sleep? Okay. Now, fingers, stimulants, drinking pints, smoking cigarettes. That's why they call it fingers. Stimulants make the body do amazing things. You can dance all night, which is good for those of you on here who said you like dancing. People lose weight without trying. You've got a deadline at work or at college, and you can stay up all night and you can do it. And it all seems amazing, but often when something seems too good to be true, it often is. So what am I talking about? Alcohol, tobacco, drugs, caffeine, antibiotics, plastics, chemicals. I'm not going to preach about alcohol, tobacco, or drugs. I don't need to preach about that. We all know that we should do these things not at all or within moderation. So, but I'm going to go to the caffeine one, because that got mentioned before, and the fact that caffeine puts our body into a state of stress. It's a stimulant, so it stops us sleeping properly. It also creates inflammation in our body. Caffeine is in obviously coffee, but it's also in tea, chocolate, energy drinks. So have your caffeine, but just be aware of how much you are having it. If you are finding that you are getting an anxious feeling, you're getting a heart racing, you're feeling a bit dizzy, could be related to how much caffeine you're having. Antibiotics, brilliant when we need them, but antibiotics don't cure viruses. And we often, when we've got a little bit of a cold or a flu, we think we should have antibiotics. They sadly kill our immune system. They break down basically our gut bacteria, which is where our immune system lives. So when we're going to have antibiotics, have them when we need them, but don't let it necessarily be the first point of call. Maybe you just need to have some oranges with some vitamin C in it. Maybe you just need to kind of focus on eating a few more vegetables to get a few more nutrients so that your body is feeling stronger. So using antibiotics as and when you need them, not all the time. And then plastics and chemicals, plastics in water bottles, chemicals in cleaning products, all of those things, when we're using them, they all go into our body. And the whole point of all of these things that I'm talking about there is they go into our body through our skin, through what we eat and drink, and that impacts us. And why? Because of this. Our liver is unbelievable. Our liver can regrow itself, but it has 500 functions a day, from storing our vitamins to breaking down our fat to creating blood clotting factors. And as soon as we put stimulants or toxins in it, its number one job becomes just about basically detoxifying. So it can't be doing all the other things properly. So we just need to give our livers a little rest so that they can do all of the amazing jobs that they need to do. So here we go. Maybe you go one less coffee a day. Start small, not asking you to go from loads to none, just shrink it a little bit. This is an interesting one because I wrote this deck before COVID happened, but I decided I wasn't going to change it because lots of people have been drinking lots more during lockdown. I know I certainly have. So made a little rule, can't drink at home. Makes it a lot more difficult. Obviously, as the world is opening up, that is becoming a little bit easier again. But thinking about how much you are drinking, and if you are drinking to cope, then drop me a note and let's have a chat. And final one on that one is avoid drinking from plastic bottles. When plastic bottles heat up, the plastic melts into the water and you are drinking it. Same goes for sort of putting food in Tupperware in a microwave. When you do that, plastic from the Tupperware goes into your food. So we want to be avoiding the microplastics as much as possible because our body doesn't want to be eating or drinking those. Right, my final point, because I'm conscious of the time and I want to give people time for Q&A. Love. People are like, what's love got to do with health and happiness? Love has got everything to do with it. The biggest cause of depression is loneliness. There is a book by a guy called Johann Hari called Lost Connections. It goes into all the research about this. So clinical trials show that those with loving relationships, and I'm not talking necessarily about romantic ones, that can be your friendships, that can be your family, those people are less vulnerable than those without. We hear about two elderly people, one of them dies at a ripe old age of 100 and the other one dies the next week, broken heart, loneliness. And it's proven even more. There are 5 areas in the world called blue zones. And in those blue zones, you are 4 times more likely to reach the age of 100 and they do not die of the chronic diseases. And yes, they eat wisely, they move, all of the positive things I've already been talking about, but they also have the right tribe of people around them. The world's longest people have got amazing friends and social networks. And I do not mean Instagram followers, I mean actual people. So thinking about that, go, right, phone a friend. When did you actually last physically speak to a friend or hug a family member now that we're allowed to do that? Join a local community. I moved to Brighton last March, just as lockdown happened. I had not a single friend here. And suddenly I realized I had to do something about that because that was not going to be okay. So I joined a local running group. It's called Run Talk Run. I'm going to actually type this in here if anyone's kind of sitting there thinking I'd like to make some new friends, because there are about 100 of these across different locations in the UK. And people meet up, they do a little 5K run. It is not quick. Some people walk them and they chat. And I have made an amazing group of friends just through joining that local community. So make the most of the friends that you've got. But if you're feeling like actually you could do with some new ones, have a look at different ways that you can join that. Facebook's a great way of connecting with local people as well. So imagine, I've given you loads of different stuff there. I'm sure that you're all a bit like, oh my God, there's so much that's gone on. But imagine if you just pick 6. Each month you focused on 6 really little habits. Imagine what you'd feel like by next year. So why don't you start with these? Add a vegetable to your lunch and dinner. Can all do that. Walk 500 extra steps a day. Start small, build it up. Go to bed 15 minutes earlier. I'm not asking you to go to bed 3 hours earlier. Start with 15 minutes. One less coffee or beer. Take some deep breaths before your meals and have a hug. There's nothing in there that A, costs you a load of money, B, takes a load of time, or you can't start to implement straight away, which is the whole point of actually what we really need to know isn't inexpensive diet books or gym plans or those things. It's in just going back to some basics. So some apps for you here. Sleep Cycle is a great app for just checking what's going on with your sleep. Use the free version. You only need to do it for a couple of nights. Don't pay for the paid version. MyFitnessPal, it's free again. Great way of just tracking your exercise and your calories if that's what you want to do. Strava, really good for tracking sort of distances if you're running, walking, cycling. Calm is a really lovely meditation app. It's got some brilliant sleep stories. Got a great series of talks by LeBron James all about his mental fitness, which is absolutely brilliant and well worth a listen. And if anyone wants those, but they don't want to get the app, drop me an email because I actually audio recorded it off the app. I know I'm not meant to do that, so let's not tell anyone at Calm, but it's all for everyone's benefit. I can send you those over because they're really good about the fact that sort of LeBron James became so successful, yes, because of his physical ability, but also his mental fitness. And I mentioned earlier, I was going to tell you about something and a thing on Instagram that you should come and join. Go to Instagram if you're on it and go to Love to Learn To and follow it. There is free breathwork 3 times a week. Wednesday at 8:30. So tonight is Wednesday. Come along. There'll be science. There'll be banter. There'll be a right old laugh. There'll be amazing music. You might potentially feel like you're sort of enjoying an Ibiza nightclub. There'll be great breath work. There'll be relaxation, and it will give you an introduction to breath work like you have never experienced. The guy that runs it is called Matt Bagwell. I will say he is my husband, but he's an advanced breathwork instructor, and he's currently working with Team GB and people that have qualified for the Tokyo Olympics. So this is not woo-woo, this is all science. 8:30 Wednesday, 8:30 Sunday night. And if you want something really different, 7 a.m. on a Wednesday morning, he goes to Brighton Beach, you do high energizing Wim Hof method, and then do cold water immersion. What better way to start the day? And then get some help. Whether this is having an accountability buddy, whether it's a family member, a friend, a colleague, a health coach, a trainer, a nutritionist, whatever it might be, if there's something that is not okay, get some help. You don't have to do this on your own. I have my own support network. I have my friends, but I also actually have my own coach that I work with. It's really important that you don't do what I did, which was I waited until I was collapsed on the floor and the paramedics were stood over me checking my breathing. And there was no need for me to have got to that point. So if there's any advice that I can give you, I'm going to open it up to Q&A now anyway, but please do ask me because we're all in this to support each other. And certainly with Mindsum, the whole sort of basis of their platform is to bring together people with the right support. So that is a fantastic place if you're going, I don't even know where to begin. So finally, all the social media, I post most days, I post some form of video giving some form of tip. Today, I was talking about the difference between hunger, desire, and a craving, which is actually quite interesting when you realize the difference. So I share videos and tips and stuff on there, but also you can direct message me through any of those if you do have any questions that you don't want to ask me now. I'm going to stop the sharing. I'm going to give you the chance to fire any questions at me. You can either turn your audio on if you feel comfortable to do that. If you don't, write them in the chat. If you don't feel comfortable with that, maybe private message me and I can share the question, but just not share your name. Oh, I'm thirsty today. Is there anything in there new that people learned that they hadn't thought about before, or that had just given them a little reminder of something they could be doing?
Michelle, really quick, would you like to, because I made you the host, would you mind just shutting off the recording at this point? Just, we sometimes like to post these and sometimes not have the personal questions in there, if that works on your end.
No worries. I have just